really appreciate your time, and we all hope you enjoy this webinar a lot. Hello to Ireland. Hi to Australia. Thank you so much for joining both. Hi, Malaysia. Thank you for being here. Hello from the USA. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for being here. From Washington, DC as well. Hi, Gabe from Malaysia, from Lebanon. Hi, all the way to Singapore. Thank you so much for being here. Hi to Panama, Taiwan. Oh, this is great. Thank you so much. Hello to Italy, Austria. Oh, I'm loving this. Hi, all the way to Serbia. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Please keep writing. We're gonna go ahead, give some starting messages, to go over some house rules, like I mentioned. First of all, I just want all of you to know this Zoom call, it's being recorded. So just FYI, everything that's here is gonna be on record, then we can share it if you want to rewatch it, re-see it again, or share it to somebody who couldn't be here before. And then the format of this Zoom call, it's gonna be attendees and panelists. So if you wanna put something on the chat, make sure you choose the option panelists and attendees so everyone can see it. I'm gonna be trying to pay a lot of attention to the chat and to the Q&A to see if you have any comments or doubts. We'll hope to answer them all. And then just keep in mind we have some certain time, so maybe we don't get to all of the questions, so we'll try to get them as many as we can answer. Important tip as well, the presentations are going to be in English, but there is going to be available translation in Arabic. So if you go down to the worldwide button on the bottom of the screen, click interpretation, then you'll find the Arabic option. So thank you so much one more time. I'm just gonna go see. Oh my God, we're here from all parts of the world. Thank you so much. Hi to Algeria. It's the last one I had to say hi to. And I'm gonna go ahead and introduce myself. I am Jimena Ojeda. I am from Peru. I am a youth advisor for the Inter-American Scout Committee and a youth representative for the World Organization of the Scout Movement. And I'm gonna be the moderator of this dialogue today. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm gonna go ahead and introduce super quick the rest of the team that's behind this awesome webinar. First, we have Mr. Elias Chistininsky. I hope I pronounced that right. He's the Secretary General and Regional Director of Religions for Peace in Latin America and the Caribbean. Then we have Mr. Rudelmar Bueno del Faria, who's the General Secretary and CEO of the ACT Alliance. We have Daniel Perel, representative of Bahia International Communities and the United Nations Office. We have Luis Aguayo, Junior Manager, Membership Services at the World Organization of the Scout Movement. And he's the representative of the Scout Donation Platform. We also have Sol Conte, Coordinator of Dialogue for Peace program in Argentina. We have Amal Riden, District Strategy and External Relations of Scouts Tunisia, and a Dialogue for Peace accredited trainer. She's also a youth advisor for the World Scout Committee. And special thanks to the team who's also here, Magda Asim and Galia Javer, who are our interpreters for today. Thank you so much for the work you do and for being behind the scenes in all of this. Well, that's the whole team who's gonna be here presenting. You're gonna hear from us. So thank you so much to all of you. Thank you so much to our experts, to our girls with the projects on grassroots and local level. This is gonna be super exciting. So I don't know about you, but I'm ready to get started. This is gonna be a pretty cool webinar. Honestly, personally, I have seen so many webinars at this point, and they go presentation after presentation after presentation. So the way this is gonna go, it's gonna be a little bit more interactive. We're gonna have, yes, some presentations, but also a lot of dialogue and interviews. very much so to the style of KAICIID and WOSM. So thank you so much. If you're ready, give a thumbs up to the camera and we're gonna get started. Awesome, thank you. Thank you so much for those thumbs up. All right, so I got some questions for our panelists and experts right now. Mr. Daniel, I'll go ahead and start with you. Could I ask you, how far is the progress of the global goals worldwide? And what is your greatest concern around the possibility to meet the agendas by the goal agenda by 2030?
Yeah, thanks so much for the question, and thanks so much for the opportunity to be here with you. I'm really looking forward to learning from everybody. It's difficult to say in just a brief intervention how far the progress has come, but I will say it's not as far as we would have hoped. And whatever progress had been made, much of it has been wiped out because of circumstances that we are all aware of and will likely touch on. So maybe it's more interesting to talk about some of my concerns. And I think the number one thing that has been on my mind, even since the adoption of the agenda in 2015, is that there's sort of a trajectory that humanity is on. And many of these aspirations, these goals, development plans are meant to kind of shift the trajectory, both in terms of policymaking and financing and social and cultural investment in these processes. And I haven't seen that shift in the trend line as a result of the SDGs. And I'm concerned that it means that the international agendas are not being adopted to the degree that we would hope. And then the next step in that is that many people, instead of trying their best to enact these agendas and these really wonderful opportunities, begin to place blame on others, place blame on governments or policymakers. And then it rather than being sort of a shared endeavor, it becomes an infighting process. And so I'm hopeful that some of the examples we'll hear today are examples of progress being made collectively. And I think that those are the kinds of things that excite me about the potential, but it's been concerning that we've seen less of that and more of sort of this internal blame game thus far. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Definitely, I think that thought of process has delayed us for many things to be accomplished. Now, if he doesn't do that, why do I have to do that? That kind of thing. Thank you so much, Mr. Daniel. Definitely some insightful. Now I want to go ahead and ask Mr. Rudelmar, what do you think are the challenges that the pandemic has caused for the achievement of the global goals? And in your opinion, what are the most crucial areas that need our attention even more now than before? I think you're muted still, Mr. Rudelmar.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you very much, Jimena, for the question and also for the invitation to be part of this discussion today. Well, maybe just to say that the challenges are many, actually. And because the COVID-19 pandemic has surfaced the dysfunctionalities of a normal that was already in crisis in most of the society, and now has the potential to even further produce social, political, and economic devastation in countries that were already fragile and facing humanitarian crisis, armed conflict, poverty, and inequalities as well. So the pandemic has exacerbated some of the previous challenges to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. And one of the challenges now is the decreased support to multilateralism, which is crucial for achieving most of the goals. We see more controlled globalization and nationalism and populism instead of increased commitments to support multilateralism and also a global agenda that consider mechanisms for solidarity between peoples and nations. So another challenge is the rise of discriminations, especially racism. This pandemic is creating a world that is less open and less free, and it's amplifying existing discriminations and inequalities, and it's making the battle to leave no one behind more difficult. And the consequences of many of these inequalities, we can already feel. You are living with that. And the discrimination based on racial, religious, and also gender grounds must be addressed together. Another challenge is the digital divide between countries, but also between global North and global South organizations. And at even a national level, communities may be left behind as privileged groups or people will continue to hold the power because they afford access to the technology, which is not the case for many. And in addition, digitalization also brings other concerns like poor data and privacy protection regulations, many of them. Another challenge is related to the COVID-19 vaccine, and that is on the news all the time. Given that we need for the need for a vaccine is global, and we are already seeing the shortage of supply, then while we see also some governments developing initiatives to grant the citizens immunizations, and this first come and first served approach is very dangerous and is risking leaving the most vulnerable behind, and also trigger humanitarian catastrophes with winners and losers. And another challenge is also in the context of the COVID is the gender justice. We know that the pandemic has impacted women disproportionately, from loss of jobs to rise in violence against women and also unpaid care work. And it also has increased discrimination and violence against LGBTQI people that we do not speak very much, but that is one of the topics. But because of time, I want just to mention two others, but very quickly. One is related also, the challenges is the financing for the global goals, because all the countries and all the organizations were affected by the pandemic, and that has an implication in terms of how we view advance when the funding is not there. And also the establishment of policies and mechanisms to support the localization of the development goals, including the promotion of local leadership. I will stop here and happy to further discuss that later.
Thank you so much. I think that's definitely come up many times what you just mentioned. No, all the differences and challenges we had before have just been like increased potentially with COVID, and we're seeing so much inequality right now. And definitely, well, financing becomes an issue and will leave always the most vulnerable behind. Thank you so much. That's really important to know and talk about. We'll go to the next question, Mr. Elias. I'd like to ask you, how can religious leaders and faith communities help in the achievement of the global goals? And what can they do to play an active role in the community?
Thank you. In 2014, when the Open Working Group concluded the draft of the 17 SDGs, we organized a high-level meeting of religious leaders from Latin America and the Caribbean in partnership with UNFPA to think together how to make the transition between the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, and the SDGs for faith communities in the region in Latin America and the Caribbean. Already then, we understood that the main problem that we will address in the new stage of these 15 years will be the inequality in Latin America and the Caribbean. That is the more unequal region in the world. Therefore, we understood that the SDG 10 should serve as like a cross-cutting axis to our work with all the SDGs. From 2015 to now, the social and economic situation in the region come to be more deteriorated. especially in the last year because the COVID-19 crisis. But before this dramatic time that we are living, some countries in the region had the expectation that they will close the gaps of the extreme poverty and to have the same rates of extreme poverty like developed countries. At the same time, they don't expect to have a big change on the inequality in the region. Inequality will remain the same. And for us, like religious communities, we believe in the same human dignity of all persons, of all people, because we are all members of the same human family. We cannot accept that inequality continue to be that heritage from generation to generation. And this is the main message, the key message that us, like community, we bring to our government and to the society at large in our region, that we need to achieve an important reduction of inequality at the same time that we need to reduce the extreme poverty. And this is a task for faith communities, for religious leaders, because this is in the roots of our belief. We are working together. We from 2014 we create the Interreligious Alliance for the 2030 Agenda, including the main faith-based organization in the region, including Caritas, the ACT Alliance, World Vision, and together we participate in the high-level political forum and the regional forum on the SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's definitely good, and I think it's very important to talk about how, you know, faith community is not something that we talk about a lot when we're talking about SDGs, and how you can contribute, and to know that all these alliances are being formed and all the efforts are being made for such a large community as well, and how we can help governments and such. It's pretty important, and thank you so much for all you do. We're gonna go ahead now and have a little bit of a presentation, and then we're gonna come back to our experts. I'm excited. We are gonna go ahead and get to know a little bit more about the Scout donation platform and how we can contribute. And then on what's coming from the webinar, we're also gonna know how this has already made an impact in different places, in different communities, and how we can all help to achieve this. So Luis, why don't you go ahead and take the floor and enlighten us a little bit more about the Scout donation platform.
Sure, thank you, Jimena. I think I would like to echo the three questions that you asked to our panelists today. As one of the biggest youth movements around the world, I think these are also the three main questions that we keep asking ourselves. How can we as a global movement can progress towards the goals? Most importantly now, how can we empower our youth that has been impacted and are also taking action during the pandemic? And at the same time, which is part of our core, how can we ensure that our youths are taking an active role in their communities? So with these three questions, or these three factors that also our previous panelists added on, in 2017, the World Scout Foundation, along with World Scouting, we sat together and there was an idea on how can we better support our scouts out there, to do this kind of closing the gap on everything that was just commented. And that's how the Scout Donation platform was actually created. Let me just share my screen now. The Scout Donation platform is our dedicated space, 100% on crowdfunding, which means that we have scouts all over the world going to the platform, sharing their stories, and putting what they're doing to support their communities. They have an idea and they need just a little bit of support. These are grassroots level scouts that have all the energy and everything that they need, or at least in terms of projects, to help their communities. And the Scout Donation platform helped them to connect with a wider audience of donors out there. And when we talk about crowdfunding, we also talk about engaging with communities that are in their local communities, but also worldwide communities, by everybody involved or everybody that want to support these projects and our amazing scouts behind them can contribute any platform in terms of their own social media, advocate for these projects, contribute towards a couple of donating to a project. And the idea here is that this Scout Donation platform is building bridges along the issues that we have as a society today towards connecting people that want to take action and for some reason they cannot do it because of the pandemic, or they would like to support a project happening on the other side of the world. And since we started, I would say that a total of or over 341 $341,000 US have been crowdfunded since we launched this platform. We had scouts that have raised funds towards supporting after the explosion that happened in Beirut last year to provide immediate support to their communities. We have scouts as young as 10 years old, like Mao, that you see in the picture. She decided to provide tablets and internet packages to kids that were under these underprivileged situations to help them continue their online studies. NSOs or our scout associations around the world trying to continue implementing programs that they readapt and change the way our communities are experiencing now to help our youth to be the best version of themselves, to scouts giving support or emergency support to last year during the global pandemic, and also providing a space. And this is one of the many projects that we have in the platforms. Scouts providing a space for girls and young women in order for gender equality and giving a voice for those that cannot speak. I mean, these are just a couple of projects that we have from scouts all over the world. And this, I believe, this is what a couple of our panelists were mentioning on what are also our scouts doing to close the gap on these amazing projects that they are actually having. Just to recap a bit, the Scout Donation platform overall helps our scouts to build their project management skills, to help them fund the grassroots levels, creating impact in their communities, but also having impact towards the other side of the communities that they live in, the immediate and the other ones that they are involved by, involving donors, involving the community they are supporting, and this helped them to showcase the impact of their work and scouting itself. And lastly, also reaching out to a wider audience and a space for the world to interact and join. I think we've been hearing and we will continue hearing about the contribution that scouts are doing for the Sustainable Development Goals. And I would like to share here that I think today our scouts that put a project into the platform, the top 3 priorities, and I think this is something that was mentioned by our panelists, is quality of education, good health and well-being, and reduce inequalities. These are the top 3 priorities that our scouts are submitted or are working on through the platform. And I think what we'll hear about more today is a great collaboration that happened or is ongoing too with KAICIID and World Scouting through the Scout Donation platform with the creation of the Dialogue for Peace Fund. And we will hear more about it. And this was aimed to support grassroots level scouts looking forward to work on projects that contributed in any dimensions of peace to improve their communities. But I guess I will let that or scouts talk about it themselves. Back to you, Jimena.
Go, Shirin.
Thank you so much, Luis. That's definitely good to know how we can go ahead and help. It's good to know to see how there is a platform for kids from 10 years old to youth, and how it's really easy for everyone to make an impact on somebody else's life. So thank you so much, Luis. Now, one of the programs that we have in scouting in partnership with KAICIID, that are the two organizations that are hosting this, it's a Dialogue for Peace program. And today we want to know and let you know about two projects that were possible because of this program and also because of the Scout Donation platform. So next, I would like to welcome Sol Conte, a friend and youth from Argentina, and I want her to share about her project that's called Spring Dialogue for Mutual Understanding. So please, Sol, go ahead.
Thank you, Jimena. Hello, everybody. I'm going to share my screen. So happy to be here. Hope you're doing well.
Don't move this laptop.
Okay. As Jimena just said, I'm Sol Conte, and I'm leading the project Spreading Dialogue for Mutual Understanding, presented by Scouts of Argentina to the Dialogue for Peace found in the Scout Donation platform. In a short version, the mission of the Scout movement is contribute to the education of young people to help build a better world where people are self-fulfilled as individuals and play a constructive role in society. KAICIID and Scout movement are developed the Dialogue for Peace program, which aims to empower young people with skills and competencies of dialogue that enable them to actively participate in the decision-making and resolution of community issues for sustainable development. When Scouts make a training, they become ambassadors of peace. In Scouts of Argentina, the Dialogue for Peace team wants to train ambassadors of peace, so they become agents of positive change, inspiring others to take action through dialogue. And that's how our challenge starts. Argentina is an extensive and diverse territory with almost 3 million square kilometers, 75,000 scouts, and more than 900 local scout groups. So could you imagine how long it would take us to do face-to-face trainings throughout the whole country? It would be crazy. So to develop the program, we had to replace the training sessions with some other tool which provides more autonomy to the users. And that's how we thought in our solution. We wanted to develop an online course with two big parts. First, research the necessities of dialogue, trying to find how an online course could help to solve them. And then selecting the content of the course in order to create a significant experience for the users, use the main concepts of the KAICIID and WOSM Dialogue for Peace training sessions, and promote the educational proposal of Scouts of Argentina. The dialogue course aims to prevent conflicts, spread values and principles of dialogue, and create systems of positive peace where relationships are multifaceted with positive interactions among others. In this way, we are contributing to SDGs 4 and 16. After a year and 4 months, we are almost ready to introduce the course. I just cannot believe I'm saying this, but it's true. We are so happy to announce that the online course will be offered in the Inter-American Scout platform. So not only Argentinian Scouts will be able to realize the course, but also every Scout from Inter-America. This is extremely significant for us because in all this road, we realize that there is only one way to spread dialogue values and every idea we believe in and is working together. Please, if you ever made something to promote peace, raise your hand or write it in the chat. I would like to see. I can imagine a lot of hands raising right now. Well, I believe we can be always a better version of ourselves. And I do believe we can, together, turn it around for a better future. Do you? In the last year, I realized that when working with humility and clear goals, every transformational activity helps to make a culture of peace. So I hope we all keep spreading dialogue for mutual understanding. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Sol, and thank you for your project and for that amazing job you do and you want to keep on doing to, spread this dialogue and this culture of peace on your community. So I'm gonna put you on the spot right now and ask you some questions that we would like to know. First, what do you think were the main challenges that you had to face to make your project a reality?
I think managing the different task groups in their volunteer time during the pandemic was a big challenge. But anyway, we are so proud of our interdisciplinary approach and the work within different areas of Scouts of Argentina.
I think that word that you just used, interdisciplinary and multilateralism, is something that our experts were talking before. It's definitely the way to go right now, and now more than ever. Okay, and I have one more question for you. It's pretty cool that we have these ideas and then we want to make these changes, but it is also true that we do need some support. So I just want to enlighten us on how important it is to receive this monetary support and the funding, and how did you do this? How did you achieve, to get people to donate and use the platform and start this amazing project?
Yes, it's so important, just as you said. Financial support was necessary to provide professionalism to the project. And firstly, we need a strong team. So everybody in the team was sharing the link of the project, trying to get to know it, and it was great. We are sometime that we are creating a helpful course because we were working a lot, and we plan to make some events to launch the course, and also we could make the badges, the certificates, and the promotional material with the support.
Thank you so much, Sol, and congratulations one more time. So now I would like to bring back one of our experts and ask you one more thing, Mr. Rudelmar, if you please. As an expert, what would be your advice to the youth in our audience that want to develop sustainable projects, that want to address the challenges we're facing in the implementation of these projects and the challenges that we're facing in our communities? And how could you say they can catch the eye of good and well-intended people like yourself or our expert here? How can we guide them through this, or what kind of support do they need on the implementation?
Thank you, Jimena. Well, regarding the question of advice to the youth, I think that we need to revert the question actually and ask them what their advice for us are. And also the advice for development practitioners, for decision makers and policy makers. The youth are full of innovative ideas on how to track poverty, discrimination, lack of opportunities, and inequalities. And they have I would say, an inherent tactical approach with respect to human rights and the environment. We saw the project presented by Luis and Sol, and they are actively engaging in promoting a world that is more inclusive and more open to sustainable ideas. But therefore, my suggestion to the youth is that they do not give up, and they occupy these spaces in their communities, organizations, and societies to contribute for a world that is sustainable. With these projects, with these ideas, to promote inclusion, respect to human rights and human dignity. On the other hand, it's up to us who are in leadership to open these spaces for young people to engage in all efforts for sustainable development and to support these initiatives. Not many organizations and governments offer young people the possibility to engage, less even for them to try to implement projects like that. And it was mentioned the challenge by Saul in terms of funding. And this needs to be changed. Otherwise, we will take longer to achieve the global goals for humanity. And it's important that we apply an intergenerational approach in our actions, but also in the projects that we plan or programs that we are intending to promote. This will ensure wider engagement, innovative ways, and a better relationship between different age groups around shared objectives for sustainable development. And it will also make us to overcome some of the social and cultural norms that put youth as troublemakers rather than agents of transformation. For the wider audience in general, I would say that my advice is that we plan, design, and implement projects and programs that involve the population that you seek to serve, but we engage youth in all these phases. That will ensure ownership and more effective actions oriented to achieve project objectives. So we should understand that the hindrance to achieve the global goals do not only occur when there is an armed conflict, an epidemiological crisis like the COVID now, or economic turndown. It is occur when there is discriminations, rights, restrictions, and inequalities of all kinds. No? So the struggles for the rights to life and human dignity, self-determination, freedom of expression, the right of assembly and association, everything need to be manifestations, address the manifestation of the people that are seeking for peace and justice and security. And to conclude, I think that the SDGs and their interconnected nature provide a good starting point in our aim to strengthen the links between our programmatic priorities. It's important that we articulate the position to build on and expand current work to reduce inequality and to promote gender and economic justice, looking especially to strengthening the links with peace, security, and development, as the projects that were presented also are contributing to. And our work should be connected more closely with disaster risk reductions and also all the implications that I mentioned in the beginning about the impact of the COVID-19. And in terms of the sustainability of the projects, they are not only related to money and funding. That is one of the challenges, not only for a youth project, but also for any NGO or international organization. But they are also related to the ability to trigger processes at community, national, and global levels that can change laws, policies, practices, and also procedures, because that is the sustainability of the project. And to conclude now, I think that we are also talking about faith here. And I believe that it's important to say that faith leaders, communities, and also organizations always played a crucial role in sustainable development and are on the front line of the multilateral cooperation in some parts. And they are very trusted sources of information and in terms of supporting communities to embrace sustainable projects. But there is a need also for them to engage and open a space for projects like the ones that were mentioned and to engage more with young people to achieve the sustainable development goals.
Thank you so much, Renmar. That was definitely very insightful. I really got the bar where you say, you know, have the youth from the design all the way through the end. You know, it's one thing to put them in the end to smile and be the face of it, but when you have them all the way from the design, it really makes a difference. And also what you said about having the people that you want to impact as part of it, so that way we understand and really understand the needs and not just assume what's needed, but just really get to them and put ourselves in their shoes. Thank you so much.
And sorry, Jimena, because there is a construction site just below here, beside my office, and they started the work. I hope that that is not disturbing my presentation.
No, we can hear you just fine. Couldn't even hear the back sound. So thank you so much. That was an amazing, insightful answer. We're gonna keep on asking a couple questions to our experts. Now our focus is gonna be turning a little bit more the subject of peace. You know, the program that KAICIID and WOSM have is called Dialogue for Peace. Many of these projects, one way or another, are trying to look for peace in their community, in their societies. Many, faith communities is what they're looking for and what they want, peace. So let's focus a little bit more in this subject and see what we can get from here. Mr. Elias, I'd like to ask you, what do you think is the role of religious leaders as yourself to empower young people at the grassroots level to develop and collaborate with community members, and how they can address local issues related to peace and to sustainable development?
Thank you. Religions for Peace has a global interfaith youth network, including regional, national, and local chapters around the world. It's our coalition that takes steps to incorporate the contribution of religious youth into our work to promote peace and shared well-being, promote peace and develop. This is evident in the flagship project and program of the Arm Downs campaign for shared security and the Our Heart, Our Responsibility campaign to protect heart. Like I explained, young people are actors in the mission of Religion for Peace around the world. They are champions of awareness of social and racial justice, because they understand that the realities of our world today are no longer acceptable. They are important for this reason, they are important partners for building peace and develop around the world. In their form, like posting on social media to raise awareness on injustice, marching for climate action, and coming together to fight violence and conflict, they are also advocate for peace and develop. We are witnesses the energy of our youth leaders and their enthusiasm for action. Their energy and their passion are source of inspiration for the global family of Religion for Peace. Our global youth network has ideas for taking problems, bringing with them learning from the past, but in the same time, the problem that they bring to our attention are relevant to the changing landscape of our society today. They have the knowledge and the technological results that allow all the network of Religion for Peace to act. We have a very wonderful youth media team that help us around the world to communicate the work of Religion for Peace. And also they bring a lot of histories of the work of local religious communities and the youth and side to the global network of Religion for Peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Elias. There's definitely, to me, a new point of view to see the way, the things this way. And I really do agree with you. Every time I hear, different scouts way younger than me, having these amazing projects, it's such big impact. And to know all the actors I had to do, even if it's, local government or some private company or some faith community, it's just great to see how the collaboration can accomplish great things. Thank you so much. To understand the role we all have to play and how we can make a difference is super important on this sustainable development road that we're trying to achieve. And one more question before going to our next project for Mr. Daniel. So why do you think it's relevant that leaders, religious leaders, community leaders, all sort of leaders, support these initiatives to achieve the global goals? I know we've been, focusing on why to help youth and all this sort, but what do you think leaders as yourself, what impact does it have on the youth? What impact does it have on the future to achieve the global goals?
Thanks so much. I don't know that I would call myself either a leader or an expert, but thank you for the flattery, which I will happily take. So I actually want to start with an analogy, because I think that the changes we're talking about today are really generational, and it's not something that you'll see in the next week or the next month. And a friend of mine was watching, this basketball tournament. I hope people on the call are familiar with some of the rules of basketball, one of which is that there's a 3-point line. And this 3-point line was instituted in the 1980s, so 40 years ago. And my friend just casually said, well, now we are learning about the 3-point line. We're seeing teams play differently. And I said, what do you mean? It's been around for 40 years. And he said, no, the first generation with the 3-point line didn't really know what they were doing. They were just sort of shooting from out there and trying to get more points. They did learn some things, and they taught that to the second generation. So now the second generation grew up with the 3-point line. But it's only when that generation that grew up with the 3-point line becomes coaches that the third or fourth generation really understands the difference in the game. And so what does this all mean for supporting youth? Well, the youth and every rising generation experiences the world through a different lens from the preceding one. And it understands the world differently, it sees the potentials differently, and then it can contribute to a whole new approach to problem solving. So it isn't just that younger generation now is better at the 3-point line, it's that the whole game is different. The whole strategy is different. And I think this is why we need all populations involved, whether it's persons with disabilities, indigenous persons, youth. I mean, this is the beauty of that diversity. It's not just so that each of those populations have a seat at the table. It's because the outcomes that we see are far more far-reaching and profound. And the shifts that we're able to see initiated by youth are tremendous because they haven't come in with these biases. They have less attachment to certain professions or the necessities of life. They have opportunities to think outside the box. And so when they see injustice, this is in general, when they see injustice, they can strategize around how to combat that injustice with new institutions, new innovations, new ideas. So if they identify challenges like a lack of jobs, they can advocate for a sufficient living wage. Or when there's distrust and hostility between different racial groups, or there's exploitation and pollution of the natural environment, they're able to find ways that other generations and other populations couldn't have thought about in order to overcome this. And so as I think religious leaders or community leaders, it's actually in the interest of all of us, regardless of our status or experience, to have these new voices come in and enlighten us, illuminate new possibilities, new horizons. And so it's not only for a seat at the table, it's not only for ownership of the project, it's really because this is how we find the generational change that's necessary. And through the religious and the faith-based avenue, just quickly to touch on that, as such a motivating force. And everyone has faith, whether you are a secular person or a religious person, you have faith in something. You have faith in humanity, faith in the SDGs, faith in your religious community, faith in your family and neighbors. And that faith is actually what motivates us to act. And so the more we can use and channel that faith towards good and positive outcomes, the more people will join in, the more motivation we get, and it's sort of a self-perpetuating cycle. And so the more youth we're able to get, the more excitement there is, the more energy there is, the better it is for all of us. And I think that's one of the many roles that faith leaders, religious actors, and really all of us on this call have, is to create these opportunities, to channel these energies toward a better future for all of us.
Thank you, Daniel. That's amazing. To hear that sort of thing. It's definitely been proved that we come later in life, we experience different things, we grow different, we have different ideas, and it's amazing to see how experts of people like you here are leaders, or people like you here are having this intergenerational dialogue with Sol, myself, and to have this mutual understanding. It's it just gives, what you just said, it gives you faith that there is people out there that wants to do things the right way, or in a better way. Thank you so much, Daniel. Well, we're gonna go ahead and, like I mentioned before, look at our other project, and it's gonna be presented by Amal. The project is called Tune Piece. So please, Amal, come here, enlighten us with your project. I think it's pretty amazing.
Thanks a lot, Jimena. Thanks, everyone. I'm happy to be here today and to share with you about my project. So I hope you can see my screen clearly. Tune Piece project. So it actually stands tune as in Tunisia, but also as in tuning the melody of peace. And this is what we were trying to do since last December. Our project aims at spreading the culture of dialogue in our communities by adapting a grassroots adapted version of the Dialogue for Peace program, which is jointly adapted by WOSM and KAICIID, as brought up earlier. So the project aims at making communities more embracing to the culture of dialogue, to diversity and inclusion. And I think we're more than halfway there, actually. For the project and why did such a project came in, the team and I detected a need to provide a platform. We found out that there is a culture that reinforces one single story. So the new generations find it hard to bring in new thoughts, since the culture would not accept a story that it's different than theirs. This was even reinforced by a generation gap and by a lack of dialogue, or actually a misunderstanding of what dialogue is. So some people take it for granted. Some people would assume any kind of exchange, be it debate or discussion dialogue. So instead of having this avoidance approach as a conflict resolution mechanism, we tried to be there and to take action and to bring this project together. So we brainstormed, we crafted the project, and we applied via the donation platform. We were lucky enough to get the grant in, via KAICIID and via the Scout donation platform. And we started the project with training sessions, so be it in person or in virtual. So we took advantage of COVID to bring in international speakers and trainers. And then the flagship step was held actually last week, which is the dialogue camp, which was super cool and super enthusiastic. We brought in both scouts and non-scouts, so around 30 participants. They went through a series of workshops around conflict resolution, peace building, identity and worldviews, countering violent extremism. And we also guided them to map the problems that they care about in their communities and that they're passionate about. And we asked them to develop follow-up activities and actions, which is going to be the next step in our project. So participants will deal with that. And at the very end, the event will be there will be a closing ceremony where we were going to share our experience at the national level, so the outcomes and the learnings, but also try to inspire other people to start their project and to join us in our dialogue trip. I'm being very energetic, especially when COVID was here and a lot of activities were delayed. We kind of got disappointed, but with the dialogue camp and the energy and inputs that young participants that were between like 13 and 17 years old contributed with and brought together, it was super outstanding. And via our project, so far we've reached out more than 100 dialogue beneficiaries, and we think we impacted them at the personal level and during the common phases, and we're already there. We're targeting more than 300 indirect beneficiaries, be it at the community level. So we're going to include Scout parents, schools, different society components in our projects, and at the national level, as I was mentioning. And here I can refer to what Mr. Rudelmar was referring in terms of sustainability, not only in terms of budgeting, but also in terms of maybe human capital. And we think we're privileged by doing this project with Scouts, is that you're covering all age categories, and this impact will grow with them, and you'll make sure they will share it on all their activities. So via CHIMPs, we're now targeting SDG 4, quality education, SDG 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions, but also SDG 17, partnerships for the goals. And we're, of course, aligned with the UN Security Council resolution on youth, peace, and security. So we're almost there. Make sure, please, to follow us, and we'll be posting more updates in the coming days via our Facebook and Instagram page. And I'm looking forward to achieving the remaining steps. Thank you, Jimena. Over to you again.
Thank you, Amal. This is exactly what I'm saying. You know, it's awesome to see how younger youth can inspire you to do and take action in so many different ways. I do have some questions for you, but before going to this, I just want to let our attendees know, if you're posting questions in the chat, if you want everyone to see them, so that way more than one panelist can maybe give you an answer or give you a hint or whatever, make sure to choose the panelists and attendees option. Otherwise, only one or two panelists or moderator can see the questions. So just a point over there. And here, so we have a translation of Arabic. Thank you so much, Magda. She translated in English the question in Arabic for everyone else also to know, for the panelists. So thank you so much. And we're gonna go ahead and continue, Amal, with the questions for you. So what motivated you? I think you mentioned it a little bit, but if you had to, you know, choose what motivated you to start a project addressing this fostering of culture of dialogue in your community, the dialogue specifically, you know.
Yeah, thanks, Jimena. Yeah, as you mentioned, I already mentioned some of the problems that kind of make it clear that we need to bring this forward and to discuss it. But also, besides of that, after 10 years of revolution in Tunisia, so this year we celebrated the 10 years of the revolution, and it was the start of the Arab Spring. So having the liberty of expression as a right, we had to use it, and we had to learn how to use it wisely. It should not be kept there without using it. So I think this made it clear that we need to take actions for that. And also maybe at the personal level, being freshly accredited as a Dialogue for Peace trainer, and also being a participant in the UNAOC Young Peace Builder MENA program. I think bringing those inputs together made it clear for me that I need to do that. And I had a team that supported the cause and wanted to contribute to that. So I think it was time, and we applied via the platform. And today we're more than halfway there.
Awesome. I think that's great. Yeah, definitely. You know, sometimes what our leaders and experts were mentioning, you know, give the youth a platform, have them, you know, open the possibilities for them, give them a hand, you know, to have this training, to have the nation platform. Definitely is like hey, I got this training, I know how to do this right now, so why don't I take action? That's awesome. Thank you so much. And another question is, was it hard to get the community involved in this?
Actually, it was super straightforward and I was super grateful for that. So maybe in the first and second phases, so the community was there as in beneficiaries because our activities was for both scouts and non-scouts, but also in terms of stakeholders. So we needed spaces to do our camping. We needed support for our events, and they were super grateful. And they did even gave us the platform to go beyond that and to deliver for their own students and for their own population. So the community was super supportive, and I think mainly the impact or the interaction with the community will be in the third and fourth phases, because the follow-up activities and the closing ceremony will be mainly targeting them. But I see it already being so smooth, and like people are supporting this cause because they know it's crucial, and they know that we should stop at some point and learn what dialogue is actually, what dialogue means and what is it actually. So like luckily for us maybe, but it was super supportive and super straightforward.
Awesome, I'm happy to hear that. And the last question, guys, is we've heard from leaders here and experts what advice they would give to the youth, but it would be also nice to hear an advice from another youth like yourself. What would you tell them that want to develop similar projects and want to make an impact? You know, where should they start?
Yeah, actually, it's not always obvious to see from where we can start, but at the same time, we have sometimes to not be overachievers in terms of we don't overthink it, but try to bring it down to do some mind map. And this is how we did actually with our participants. So take the big problem, try to break it down to small pieces and see what you can actually do, what can be a starting point for you. Get a team that supports the cause and be passionate about it, because otherwise it won't be helpful to do it, because at some point you will lose maybe faith in that. But if you're passionate about it, you can do it, and you will resist to all the circumstances, and then try to find the necessary resources. For us, we had a platform. It can be some other crowdfunding platforms if you can do so, or some local resources, or some people that believe in your cause, and just go ahead, plan it, and try to accommodate.
Awesome, thank you, Mal. Definitely take note. So now we're gonna go back to some of our older experts. I dare to say, because to me and Mal and Sarah are already experts. You know, they're giving us here, showing the projects, already make some impact. You're experts as well. We're gonna go back to our older folks. Thank you so much, Aman. So we're coming to the close of this. So we're gonna, wrap up, do some impact questions, and then key messages. I'll first go ahead and ask Mr. Elias. So from your experience working in interreligious relations, could you share with us some examples of meaningful collaborations, alliances between community and youth, between religious leaders, between all these communities for different development sustainable projects?
Thank you. We organize a campaign, like I explained before, our heart, our responsibility, that it's a global multi-religious youth-led campaign that seeks to educate, engage, and advocate on behalf of our heart by mobilizing religious believers and people of good will to protect our shared planet from climate change. Please, if you can show a video that I sent to Anja, it's about this.
Yes, I think she'll go right ahead and we'll see this video.
Thank you. Maybe she can make Zoom also.
Every religious tradition has its own religious and spiritual resources to help us protect our common home.
I think it's a tremendously rich times where we can see the interface of science and spirituality. And this for me is really hopeful.
The very fact that arguably the most important religious figure is addressing this issue highlights how enormously significant and important it is for all of humanity.
اسلام تأکید زیادی بر حفظ طبیعت داره و حمایت از طبیعت داره.
I pledge as an architect that I would promote green architecture in our projects.
And I pledge to save water and energy, say no to single-use plastic, be involved and volunteer in programs that promote environmental protection, and encourage my family and friends to do the same.
I pledge to only use organic pest control methods in my garden.
I pledge to protect the earth by using less plastic and practicing responsible waste disposal.
In the Jewish tradition, we're taught that God asked of the human race that we would be partners in creation. This is not an economic or a financial. This is at the core a religious obligation.
We are not the owners of the earth. We are stewards, have inherited the earth, and we have to keep it to handle it over to the next generations.
Time to act is now.
Thank you. And this was a campaign led by our Global Youth Network with a concrete example in the field.
That is amazing. I loved the video. I think it's, you know, it's definitely very much true, everything they say, and it shows how tight everything else is and how interconnected we all are, you know, in this big motherland world. Thank you so much, Mr. Elias.
Thank you.
Gonna go ahead now and ask again, Mr. Delmar. So let's remember, as a CEO of an international coalition for more than 130 churches and faith-based organizations working together in humanitarian assistance, sustainable development, and advocacy work in over 120 countries, what would be your main points on how faith communities can foster public and private partnerships for these development projects worldwide? And what role do faith-based organizations play in such partnerships? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will just unmute myself. Well, that's a very good question and very pertinent question, actually, Jimena. And the importance of fostering partnership with different stakeholders is an urgent need rather than an option for faith communities. In this context, it's important that we understand that the nexus between religion and development has been part of the secular religious debate for many years. But often religion has been ignored and sidelined in international development strategies and cooperation. However, in the last decades or so, we have seen the United Nations, multilateral organizations and governments demonstrating increased interest in engaging with faith communities, whether to enforce shared values and objectives, to take the tasks on humanitarian development providers, that's one of the major roles of faith communities, or to counter terrorism and hate speeches. That is happening, and we have many examples. But seeking for partnership governments and multilateral organizations needs to understand and recognize where faith communities have distinctive and sometimes unique contributions to make to development processes. And faith communities and government actors, we know that often do not share enough common language on issues of mutual concerns. Also, the priorities of religious communities do not necessarily coincide with those of governments, especially with respect to timescales. Faith communities often perceive their efforts as oriented towards long-term changes and improvements, while government often operates in a different system, that short-term bureaucratical or political cycles. And now recognizing that the COVID-19 pandemic makes the need for innovative and effective partnership acute, it's essential and urgent for different stakeholders to cooperate, including faith communities. And as we enter in a unique windows of opportunity for build a new social contract that honors the dignity of everyone, that's very important, this cooperation. It's important to mobilize collaborative response between faith-based and multilateral organizations, governments, and also business, the private sector, and also to identify opportunities for investments and funding as well on system-changing interventions. And the benefits, as we see as ACT Alliance, they go also from increased financial support at global and national levels, broader influence, including access to the power centers, but also increasing support in accessing new avenues for advocacy. However, that's very important, especially for the young people that are working in faith communities or as a faith-based organizations. When entering in public and private partnership, an overriding principle is to maintain the integrity of faith communities' mandates and vision, and to guard against instrumentalization. And you know how religion is manipulated, the religionization and also the politicization of religion is very strong as well. But also to build partnerships that promote equality and mutual respect, irrespective of their size, status, and power. Not because they have money, that they will dictate the way how the cooperation and partnership will be. And any partnership with faith communities pursuing with the private sector, it's important to stand up to questions about how to advance the human rights principles that we recognize as faith-based organizations. We know from the past of red flags about private cooperation or private sector policies on transparency. And we also must consider a strategy to leverage the great space faith communities and organizations have gained in the global arena, being the UN, World Economic Forum, with governments or others, and into practical funding opportunities as well, but in partnership for other purpose in terms of advancing the Agenda 2030, for instance. So in the context of the COVID pandemic, the role of the local and national organizations and leadership can play, make a big difference actually. So we need to advance the role of national actors and leadership across all humanitarian, development, and advocacy work as the basis in which to build resilience, human rights, and dignity, with faith communities playing a central role and also facilitating the implementation of the localization agenda in all levels, national, regional, and global. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Román. I think that is, very important to understand and to, recognize we're not always speaking the same language, between private and international organizations and civil society and faith organizations. We all have, some different points of view, but it is important and it's a must right now, the collaboration in order to achieve the goals or just for sustainable or just for the earth itself. Thank you so much. So we're seeing with what our experts are saying this, each of us have a unique role to play, but we all have to play together. You know, every person has something to do, some role, some small seed to plant there to be able to turn it around. So my question to our last, I don't know if to call you expert or leader or what, Mr. Daniel.
That is fine.
Okay.
The last guy.
You have vast experience in areas of work, including social and sustainable development, climate change and environment, global citizenship, human rights, the role of religion in society. You see, you sound like an expert. What would be some of the strategies and solutions to create harmony and interfaith collaborations for a better future for humanity?
Yeah, so this is, you know, the big question that we need to figure out is how do we play together in this one sandbox? And I think, you know, Rudolma was getting to the same place I think I would end up, which is that we have to set aside some of these constituency-based understandings of who we are. You know, I am from the United States. I am a father. I am a Baha'i. I am male. All of these things that I am, but I'm also a human being. And so in any space where we're engaging, that needs to be kind of the first point of departure, because we have all of these other categories in which we can, identities that we can put ourselves into, but those often end up othering those who don't fit into those categories. And once you start to other people, it's actually it's much more difficult to create harmony and collaboration. And I want to talk about this across 3 dimensions. One is the dimension of our thoughts. The next is the dimension of our language. And then the third is our action. And so our actions may actually look quite similar, you know, whether you're picking up garbage in the streets to better your community. You could be doing that all over the world, but your reasons for doing that may be different. The way you articulate what you're doing may be different. So the greater degree that we can talk about this as a shared agenda that all human beings have, the more we'll be able to find harmony, because everyone can agree that a clean community is a better community. So let's start at those points of agreement. Yet in many of our education systems, even in our competitions for funding, there's always this othering, there's this competitive dimension, this adversarial posture that can really get in the way of harmony. So if I come to this space and I say I'm a Baha'i, therefore, you know, my ideas are the best, or, you know, we have all the answers. Suddenly other colleagues who may not ascribe to this faith are saying, well, I'm not really with you on this. And so what I've done is I've created a dichotomy. And that's what we have to work beyond in our thought, in our language, and in our action. And then what you end up seeing is that each community has its own specific challenges, its own specific dynamics. And it's that those folks who are indigenous to those communities are the ones that should be the generators of the solutions. For too long, we've sort of relied upon the quote developed world to fund the solutions, again in quotes, but we're seeing that this posture is just not sustainable. And it's not only not sustainable, it's in some sense bringing us backwards. So then the question is, how do we empower those local populations, indigenous populations, not just indigenous as in native, but indigenous as in those who've grown up there, to really find the solutions that are appropriate for them. And there is no one size fits all in terms of the solution, but in terms of the process, the inclusivity, the openness, the welcoming, those processes can allow for interfaith, intercultural, all kinds of interactions where everyone feels like they have a part to play. Not everyone needs to be the heart of a project. Some people need to be the hands, some people need to be the legs, some people need to be the lungs. And then once we recognize that we all have our specific role to play, the whole human body can advance collectively. And I think these are barriers that have been taught to us about othering that we have to unteach. And as we unteach and unlearn them, we're able to then, again, you know, think about generational change, help create environments for those rising generations to be in a milieu where there is less othering, where there is more togetherness. And it may sound a little bit kumbaya, a little bit too soft, But really, it is much harder. Once you have strong bonds of friendship and community ties across any differences, then when there's a disaster, when there's a tragedy, you can come together. And it's in fact the soft things that end up being the hard things in the end. The immeasurable become the more impactful. Thanks.
The immeasurable become the more impactful. I'm gonna take that and put it somewhere here. I think it's definitely super strong what you just said, and what the soft becomes stronger at the end, and those ties that, you know, they're not on paper, but we build throughout the time when we're building that whole relation. And the fact that we recognize the solution might not, you know, be the 100% adequate for everyone, the process can be. And I think that's where we need to focus on. Thank you so much, Daniel. We are reaching the end of this webinar. I have learned so much in this hour and a half. I do want to just hear one more time from all our panelists, girls, experts, guys, everyone is here. We will be thinking in all the advice that you have given us. We'll be trying to play an active role in our societies. And I just want to know one thing, you have like 8 minutes each for this, that would highlight for our audience, for everyone who's hearing, for you, what would you tell them to keep in mind in order to turn it around for the future of the people and for the future of our planet? Okay, all right, I'm just gonna call to you guys as the list I have here. Mr. Elias. Is he around?
Yes, I'm sorry.
You're good.
I understand. I am a person of faith. I am a believer of one religion. And for me, or for my understanding, building the future, it's building the kingdom of God in the heart. It's to fulfill the plan of God for us. This is building the future for me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your intervention, and thank you for all the advice and answers you've given us today. I'm gonna go ahead and ask Luis to please share with us your piece of advice.
Yeah, I would say that sharing the future that we want is responsibility of everybody. And I think we've heard such a great inspiration. And if you feel like you want to take action, I would invite you to find the cause you want and you believe is worth fighting for, and go out there, advocate for those on your own social media. If they are looking for funds, donate a coffee that you will drink tomorrow. If they're looking for volunteers, go and support. I mean, we can all put our hands into this to make the world we want.
Definitely. Thank you, Luis. Thank you for everything. Mr. Rudamar, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. What I will say is that the youth need to have in mind that their education is the turning point to start turning around. And without proper education and training, it will be very difficult to make change for the future of the people and the planet. So youth must organize themselves to engage in global, regional, and country level actions to address issues related to gender justice, climate justice, peace, and economic advancement. They must fight to get agency and advance their rights in all their diversity around the world, and to ensure their engagement and participation in the implementation, review, follow-up of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, as well as other relevant global agendas and frameworks.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Ruderman. I want to go ahead and invite Amal. Could you give us one last piece of advice?
Yeah, thanks, Jimena. So I think what I would say to all the youth over there, I think we're needed to be there and to take action, and 2030 is the deadline is almost there. So Don't overthink it. Just try to identify your purpose, your mission, or what you wanna deal with, and just get started. We're so much needed, so let's do it.
Thank you, Mel, very much. I think you're absolutely right. Mr. Daniel, please.
Great, I have 4 very quick thoughts. First is stay loyal to the principle of justice. That's hard to do, but super important. Second, ensure that the means and the ends are aligned. You can't get justice through unjust means. Third is do not be deterred by the slow rate of change. We're talking about big changes that are generational, and it's a long road. And then last is always keep the lens of the oneness of humanity as omnipresent in our efforts. And thanks so much for the opportunity again.
Thank you so much, so much. Definitely very important points. Last but not least, Sol, could you please give us the last piece of advice?
Yes, of course. I think we all should find an idea we absolutely believe in. We have to feel it with all the body, with all the heart, and then create a team and create networks all the time to take action.
Awesome. Thank you. Definitely all of you have given some food for thought, some enlightening content, so many inspiring stories, and the willingness to go forward. I would like to highlight the importance of this kind of situation, this intergenerational dialogue, this, understanding how we all from our different situations, our leaders, our grassroots heroes, and from big organizations setting up donation platforms, and from all sort of backgrounds working together to accomplish this change. And like Danielle said, first we're humans, and then we have all these different identities. So realize at first, just we want to help everyone change the world, and these spaces will help us doing that. So thank you very much. I cannot believe this, we're right on time. I don't know how this happened, but thank you so much to our experts, leaders, panelists, girls, also to Anya and everyone who's been behind the scenes, interpreters, chats. And yeah, I think if there are some unanswered questions on the chat, our experts or panelists will try to go ahead and answer them. If not, thank you very much. I enjoyed this very much. I learned a lot, and I hope you all did as well.